Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a look at a really interesting global market, glycerol.
That's right. We've got a pretty comprehensive market report here. Lots of data, analysis, regional breakdowns. The works.
And our mission really is to sift through all that and pull out the key insights. What's the state of the glycerol market now? Where's it going?
Exactly. And crucially, why is it heading that way? We want to give you a solid, concise understanding without getting lost in, just the raw numbers.
Okay, great. So let's jump right in. The report starts with the big picture, global market size and growth. For 2025, what are we looking at?
For 2025, the estimate is USD 241.5 million, so just over $5.2 billion.
5.2 billion. Okay. And it's not stopping there, I assume.
No, definitely not. The projection shows it climbing pretty steadily.
Yeah.
By 2033, it's expected to reach, USD 639.78 million.
Wow. Okay, so over 6.6 billion?
Yeah, and that works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of exactly 3.00% between 2025 and 2033.
3% seems solid, consistent growth.
It is. And these numbers, they're using 2024 as the base year. The report also includes historical data going back to 2021 and then forecast out to 2033.
Got it. So a decent time frame for context. All right, so after the global view, the report really breaks it down by region, gives us the 2025 picture and the growth expectations for each area. North America. It's leading the pack right now.
That's right. North America holds the biggest share, actually over 40% of the whole market. That translates to USD 1939.36 million for 2025.
Over 1.9 billion, significant. But what about their growth rate?
Well, that's the interesting part. While they're the biggest, their projected growth is a bit more moderate. It's a 1.5% CAGR.
Okay, 1.5%. And within North America, the U.S. must be the giant there.
Oh, absolutely. The U.S. accounts for the bulk of it. USD 1,530.15 million, and its CAGR is even a little lower, 1.3%.
And that's driven mainly...
Primarily the high demand for personal care products. That's a huge sink for glycerol in the U.S.
Right, cosmetics, lotions, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Now, Canada is smaller, USD 232.72 million, but has a slightly better growth outlook at 2.3% CAGR.
Why the difference?
Well, in Canada, the report points to rising demand in not just pharmaceuticals and cosmetics, but also biofuel playing a role.
Biofuel. We'll probably come back to that. And Mexico?
Mexico's market is around USD 176.48 million, with a 2.0% CAGR. So you can see, even within North America, there are these different dynamics at play.
Definitely. Okay, let's cross the Atlantic. Europe, also a major player, right?
For sure. Europe accounts for over 30% of the global market.
Oh.
In 2025, that's about USD 420.04 million.
And their growth.
Their overall CAGR is projected at 2.1%, a bit higher than North America's overall rate.
Okay. And within Europe, it's a diverse place.
Very diverse. Let's look at a few. The UK has a market size of USD 255.37 million, but a pretty strong CAGR of 2.9%.
2.9%. Interesting. Why so high?
Similar drivers to Canada, actually. Strong
Yeah.
demand in pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and biofuel.
Okay, seeing a pattern there. What about Germany? Big industrial base.
Germany's larger, USD 300.97 million, with a 2.3% CAGR. And a key factor there is the rising demand for bio-based products generally.
Makes sense. France.
France is a bit lower, market size around USD 139.84 million, and growth projected at 1.3%.
Then Russia.
Russia is quite significant in size, USD 235.61 million, but their growth forecast is more modest, just 1.1% CAGR.
Right. And then you have Italy, Spain, smaller Nordic countries.
Yep, Italy at 1.5% CAGR, Spain 1.2%, Sweden's at 2.2%, Denmark 1.9%, Switzerland's 1.7%, even Luxembourg showing 2.4% growth, though from a smaller base.
So quite varied across Europe. But the real growth story, according to the report, is Asia-Pacific, APAC.
Absolutely. That's where things get really dynamic. APAC currently holds around 23% of the market share, so about USD 157.96 million in 2025.
Okay, smaller share than Europe or North America now.
Right, but the growth rate, the projected CAGR for the region is 5.6%. That's significantly higher than the others.
5.6%, that's fast. Who's leading the charge there?
China, definitely. It has the largest share within APAC, USD 528.34 million, and a strong 5.1% CAGR. This is down to huge production capacity and massive domestic demand.
Okay. And India, often a high-growth story.
India is remarkable here. Its market size is smaller, USD 125.80 million, but the projected CAGR is a whopping 7.5%.
7.5%. Wow, what's fueling that?
Rapid expansion in their pharmaceutical, cosmetics, and crucially, biofuel sectors. Sound familiar?
It does. Biofuels again. What about other major APAC economies? Japan? South Korea?
Japan's at USD 173.60 million with a 4.1% CAGR. South Korea, USD 150.96 million, growing at 4.7%. So healthy growth there too.
And even smaller players are growing fast.
Yeah, look at Australia, 4.9% CAGR. Singapore, 5.9%. Taiwan, 5.4%. Southeast Asia as a whole, 6.4%.
Incredible growth rates across the board there.
It really paints a picture. While North America holds the title now, APAC is, well, it's the engine of future growth for Glycerol, it seems.
Definitely the one to watch. Okay, let's quickly cover the other regions. South America.
South America holds just over 5% of the market, about USD 199.18 million in 2025. Their overall CAGR is 3.7%.
Higher than North America or Europe's average?
Yes, Brazil is the dominant player there, USD 85.25 million, growing at 4.3%. And guess why?
Let me guess. Expanding biodiesel industry.
You got it. And Argentina showing strong growth too, 4.6% CAGR, from a base of about USD 33.46 million. Again, biodiesel, but also pharma and personal care contributing.
Interesting. And the Middle East and Africa? Smaller shares again, I assume?
Correct. The Middle East is around 2%, USD 209.66 million, but with a decent CAGR of 4.2%.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia and the UAE lead there, 4.5%, 4.7% growth respectively. Turkey also shows strong growth at 4.8%.
And Africa?
Africa holds about 1% of the market share, roughly USD 115.31 million, growing at 3.3% CAGR overall. South Africa and Nigeria, the main markets mentioned.
Okay, so zooming back out, North America and Europe are the established giants, volume-wise. But APAC is where the real dynamic growth is happening, followed by, interestingly, the Middle East and South America showing pretty robust CAGRs too.
That's a good summary. The growth isn't uniform at all.
Now, the report also segments the market differently, not just by region, but by how the glycerol is made and how it's used. Let's talk sources first. Where does most of it come from?
Well, the major share, as we've kind of hinted, comes from biodiesel production. Glycerol is a natural byproduct when you make biodiesel.
Right, the co-product.
Exactly. And it's interesting because as demand for renewable energy like biodiesel increases, you automatically get more glycerol supply, which in turn makes it more available for other uses like pharma and cosmetics.
A kind of interconnected supply chain. But is biodiesel the fastest growing source?
No, actually. The report identifies fatty alcohols as the fastest growing production source segment.
Fatty alcohols, why is that growing so quickly?
It seems to be driven by increasing demand for them in personal care products, detergents, and other industrial uses. Plus, there's a big push for bio-based products generally, and fatty alcohols fit that bill.
Okay, so biodiesel is the biggest volume source, but fatty alcohols are growing faster as a source. What about applications? Where does all this glycerol end up?
The biggest slice of the pie, application-wise, is currently food and beverages.
Food and bev, how is it used there?
Mainly as a sweetener, but also as a humectant. That means it helps retain moisture and as a preservative. Think processed foods, baked goods.
Ah, okay. And demand for processed foods isn't exactly shrinking.
Precisely. Plus, there's a trend towards using more natural ingredients, and glycerol fits that sometimes. But the fastest growing application, that's polyether polyols.
Polyether polyols, bit of a mouthful. What are they used for?
They are absolutely essential for making polyurethane foams and plastics. Think insulation in buildings, car seats, furniture cushioning, coatings.
Okay, so major industrial uses. Why the fast growth there?
It's tied to demand in automotive, construction, furniture, all big sectors.
Yeah.
And there's also a drive for more energy-efficient materials, like better insulation, which uses polyurethanes.
Got it. So food and bev is the biggest use now, but polyols for polyurethanes are growing fastest. And we already mentioned personal care and pharma as major uses, too.
Yes, those remain very significant drivers of demand, particularly underpinning the market in regions like North America and parts of Europe. The report also lists things like alkyd resins, tobacco humectants, even explosives, textiles, and paper as other application areas.
Wow, it really gets used everywhere. It's incredibly versatile.
It really is.
So like any market, there must be things pushing it forward and things holding it back. What are the key drivers the report points to?
Well, on the plus side, you've got technological advancements that are just making production more efficient. That helps. Also, wider adoption in chemical and industrial applications, as we saw with polyols.
And the food side, too.
And definitely the expanding use in food and beverages for those functional properties, keeping things moist, preserving them. Those are big drivers.
Okay. And what about the brakes, the restraints?
One issue highlighted is limited awareness, especially in some emerging markets, about all the potential uses for glycerol. If people don't know what they can do with it, they won't demand it.
Right. Market education needed there.
Exactly. And then there are challenges related to uh, disposal and environmental concerns associated with its production or refinement sometimes. That can be a hurdle.
Environmental factors are always key now. What about overall trends shaping the market?
A big one is the rising preference for glycerol in more eco-friendly industrial applications. Companies want bio-based inputs.
The sustainability angle.
Definitely. And there's also a lot of ongoing research looking into completely new uses, particularly in biotechnology. So innovation is a key trend.
So efficiency gains, wider use, but also awareness gaps and environmental bits to manage. And this push towards green chemistry and new biotech uses.
Yeah.
Now, who are the main companies involved? What's the competitive scene like?
It's described as pretty active. Key players are focused on expanding their production naturally, but also investing in technology and forming partnerships.
What do they compete on? Just price.
Price is a factor, of course, but purity is really important for many applications, especially pharma and food. So purity, pricing, and how good their distribution network is, getting it to customers reliably.
And who are these players generally? What kinds of companies?
It's a mix. You've got the big biodiesel manufacturers because they produce so much crude glycerin, then specialized chemical companies who refine it or use it, and of course pharmaceutical suppliers who need high purity grades.
And this whole sustainability trend must be shaking things up.
For sure. The increasing demand for bio-based products and sustainable solutions is definitely intensifying competition. It's forcing companies to innovate, to find greener processes or higher value applications.
Did the report mention any specific company moves?
Yes, a couple of recent examples. One was Argent Energy, back in October 2024, launching what they call Europe's largest bio-based technical-grade glycerin facility. It's in Amsterdam.
What's special about it?
They take the crude glycerin from their own waste-based biodiesel production and upgrade it to 99.7% purity. They're marketing it as a sustainable alternative for chemical producers.
Okay, upgrading a waste stream. That's smart. Any others?
There was also a mention of ENI and BASF teaming up back in July 2021. They announced a joint R&D project.
To do what?
To figure out how to convert glycerin again from biodiesel into something called biopropanol. They're looking at a specific chemical process, catalytic hydrotreatment.
Bipropanol. Why would they want to do that?
The idea is to create another valuable bio-based chemical and, importantly, to potentially reduce the CO2 footprint associated with transportation fuels or chemicals. So
Okay.
again, innovation focused on value and sustainability.
Those examples really bring it to life. It shows companies are actively trying to leverage this glycerol byproduct in new ways.
Absolutely. It's not just a static market.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive on the glycerol market, what are the main things you think we should take away?
Well, first, it's clearly a significant global market, already over $5 billion, and it's got this steady, solid growth projected, around 3% CAGR overall.
Right. Not explosive, but consistent.
Exactly. Second, the regional picture is really important. North America and Europe are the current heavyweights, but Asia-Pacific is where the fastest growth is by far.
Driven by China, India, and others in the region.
Correct. Third, its growth is tied to some big trends: the rise of biodiesel, the general shift towards bio-based products in everything from food to industrial chemicals, and ongoing tech improvements.
And fourth?
I'd say the competitive landscape. It's active, driven by concerns about purity, price, but increasingly sustainability and innovation, as those examples showed.
It really does seem like a market sitting at the crossroads of several major trends: renewable energy, green chemistry, consumer goods.
It absolutely is. Its fate is linked to how those broader trends play out, which makes it pretty fascinating to watch.
It does. And maybe a final thought to leave our listener with.
Yeah, thinking about that increasing focus on bio-based alternatives everywhere, it makes you wonder, doesn't it, what unexpected industries, maybe ones we haven't even touched on today, might start finding significant uses for glycerol in the coming years. Where else could this versatile molecule pop up?
That's a great question. Something to keep an eye on for sure.